Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another edition of the Stampede. My name is Ryan Jones, along with my good friend Ashton Yanez, here for another exciting episode. We have a lot to cover today. The AFC NFC Championship games, we're going to react to them. Matthew Stafford is officially going to be traded from the Detroit Lions, something I've been calling for all season if you've listened to the podcast in the past. And we're going to give our early Super Bowl preview and talk a little bit about the game, as well as we're going to talk about Kobe Bryant 1 year later. His death, by the time you'll be hearing this for the podcast, was yesterday, Tuesday. You're going to be hearing this on Wednesday. We do record Tuesday night, so, But before we get into all of that, I want to go over a few housekeeping issues and whatnot. For one, our last two podcasts that we had did not get posted to Spotify or iTunes, and that is somewhat on me. That's somewhat on the podcast hosting site that I use. For some reason, the site was not loading correctly when I was trying to upload both of these podcasts for like the last week. So you're just not, if you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, you're just not going to be able to hear I believe it was our divisional reaction and our conference championship predictions. So if you're hearing this on Spotify or iTunes, go over to YouTube. You can hear our predictions. We're also going to be talking about our predictions now, obviously, what we thought was going to happen. I believe both of us went 1-1 because we both picked the Chiefs and we both picked the Packers. I kind of somewhat picked the Bucs, but that was 2 weeks ago. So, we'll talk about that later once we cover the NFC. Another thing, down below in the descriptions are our social medias, Ashton and mine's, and I'd like you guys to go there if you're hearing this. Give us a follow, give us a friend request, whatever, and we'll follow back. I promise, we always do. And I like interacting with people that listen to the podcast. Let's have a conversation about football and whatnot. One other thing, if you could, whatever platform you're listening on, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube, please do yourselves a favor and do us a favor. Like the video, give us a 5-star review, comment, subscribe, whatever the platform that you're listening on allows you to do us a favor and help us out as much as possible. It helps us potentially maybe do this one day full-time for a job. Now that all that's out of the way, Ashton, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. It's a good Tuesday. Things aren't as busy as they were last week for me with school and some of my other work stuff. So I'm feeling really good. I'm kind of bummed that the Packers didn't beat the Buccaneers, but we'll go more into that later on.
Yeah, and I think it's like the exact opposite for me. I think I'm super busy with school this week, but we're all gonna make time every single week for this podcast because this is
Because
what
we're
we love.
committed.
Yep, this is what we love to do. So first off, I talked to you before the show. You wanted to cover the AFC Championship game. Let's talk about it. The Chiefs beat the Bills 38-24. Let's talk about it.
Well, it was pretty much a good game. It wasn't as close as I thought it'd be. I think I said it was going to be like a 4 to 7 point game, somewhere in that range. But Kansas City's just darn near unstoppable to defend. I mean, back-to-back games of 100-yard receiving for both Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. First time for the Kansas City Chiefs for that to happen in like 50 years during the postseason. They just have an unstoppable offense, and everything's really working out. Even though the run game isn't as big as it is in Kansas City, they still have ways to beat you in different ways in the passing game. And Patrick Mahomes just by himself is already just a force to be reckoned with. He has one of the best arms in the game. He is one of the most talented. He's one of the most talented quarterbacks that we've seen in quite some time. They're just really taking care of business. And then Andy Reid just being one of the best head coaches in the NFL. This is a guy who's been coaching football games for a long, long time. So for him to have all these weapons to work with, it allows him to be more creative than other NFL coaches, especially deep into the postseason. Bills-wise, I thought they did play a good game. I thought Josh did make some mistakes. He definitely likes to try and extend the plays when he knows there's no way that he can. There were times when that corner from Kansas City was in his face, and he still thought he could run away from him. Josh, he's fast, but he's not 4-2, 4-3 fast like these corners are in the NFL. So, I mean, pretty much what I expected. I'm a little bit sad that the Bills lost, but I'm also happy for the Chiefs. I think they're a really good football team, and I think we'll see these teams play each other in another AFC Championship game pretty soon.
Yeah, I fully expect the Bills to be right back here. You mentioned it. I don't think Allen played well enough to win this game. They did have some turnovers. Um, and the Bills overall just were not able to run the football whatsoever. On the ground they did outgain the Chiefs, but that's only because Allen himself rushed for 88 yards on 7 carries. They used him a lot as a runner, and a lot of just out of script plays where Josh had to scramble, right? But other than that, their leading rusher was Devin Singletary, 6 carries, 17 yards. Um, I think that's a big reason why Mel Kiper's mock draft had them taking Najee Harris today. Um, and the Bills, they're in a tough spot here because their left tackle is also, no, not their left tackle. The right tackle is free agent, so they're gonna have to re-sign him. I don't know if they have the cap for that. I just don't know the Bills cap situation, so um, Stephon Diggs rather quiet, 6 catches, 77 yards. That's a good day for an average receiver, but not for Stephon Diggs, right? You expect him to do more. Um, just all around the Chiefs, I just think they pretty much just dominated the Bills. They had more first downs, they had more passing yards, they had more running yards. If you don't account for Allen's 88 yards, you account just for the other players that ran the football. Yards per play, the Chiefs were higher. The Chiefs had more first downs. The Chiefs converted more on third down. Both teams actually were 100% on their fourth down conversions, which is something I want to talk about. The Chiefs 1 for 1. The Bills were 2 for 2, and the Chiefs just dominated the time of possession as well. I think the main thing is, something that we both noticed, and it's something that's been talked about by all the major sports analysts out there. Doug McDermott settling for field goals in these key situations instead of going for it in the red zone multiple times. Look, you can look back on it in hindsight and say, he should have gone for it. Yeah, he should have, right? But in the moment, he says he wants to take the points. I understand. The analytics, I would imagine, probably say to go for it, and I I would imagine I am more of an analytics guy than you are. But look, you can't really. I don't think you can really fault Doug McDermott for just kicking the field goals. I mean, look, I understand why you get on him or whatever, but you're playing the Chiefs, and I think in those moments you kind of have to realize you're going to have to score like 40 points to beat them, right? Um, I think the overall common theme that we've just saw over the weekend with this Chiefs and Bills game, and as well as the NFC Championship, the more aggressive coach on both sides won their games. And Reid, obviously known for being an aggressive coach, Bruce Arians, one of the most aggressive coaches we've ever seen in football, right? So look, I hope that this is something that other coaches in the league see. And, it's crazy to me that some coaches are still stuck in the 70s and 80s where they think they could just ground out, run the football. Look at the two teams in the championship. Neither of them have a notable running back, really. Neither of them run the ball particularly well. And they're the two best teams in football, right? The Bucs and the Chiefs. So I think, look, and running the football obviously matters and whatnot. I'm not gonna we both know that, and everyone knows that. Running the football matters. You just have to be aggressive in these situations, and you can't not go for it, right? So
Yeah, I pretty much agree with there. And then you talked about being aggressive. Not only was Kansas City being aggressive on the offensive end, but they were really aggressive on the defensive end. I mean, they were playing some of the best man coverage that I've seen, this season. I mean, for them to find ways to take away Stephon Diggs, to take away Cole Beasley at the same time, that is, you know, hard to do. Not as hard as stopping Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, obviously, but still hard to do. Both are really good wide receivers. So to be playing consistent man coverage like that without, getting holding calls and stuff like that, I mean, that's an aggressive play call there by Andy Reid, by the defensive coordinator of Kansas City Chiefs, who is a very, experienced defensive coordinator and someone who's going to have to do similar stuff again when he faces Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense.
I think something else I kind of wanted to talk about when it comes to the Chiefs and Mahomes was that I think it's just kind of crazy how Mahomes is just kind of continuing to get better. Like last year, I thought this dude was like, I think we both agree, and I think most of America agrees, is the best quarterback in the NFL right now, right? Um, but there was one knock that I personally had on his game. I thought that a lot of the times he floated too far back in the pocket and put his offensive line in bad situations. And I think that if you look at the tape, you see a lot of the times Mahomes gets sacked, it's because he's running around there trying to do too much and he keeps backing up, right? Avoiding the rush. And in this game, I noticed something. Mahomes didn't do that, and he just continued to step up in the pocket like you're supposed to, manipulating the pressure and delivering it. I mean, he had 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. He played absolutely phenomenal, and he's almost at this point like a flawless quarterback. And if he could just limit the bad throws that he has, every game he has like one bad throw that should be or is an interception, just because he kind of has that gunslinger mentality. And but I just he it's just crazy to me how much better he's continuing to get.
Yeah, and not only from a talent standpoint and from stepping up in the pocket, but also just understand the game of football better. This was a guy who said entering the league that he was still learning about some of the coverages that Andy Reid was showing him about inside playbooks and stuff. So and a lot of things that we think that most quarterbacks already know, coming out of like the Big 12, the SEC, Pac-12, ACC, and the Big 10. Mahomes like, no, I was still learning these on the fly with Andy Reid because Andy Reid was so articulate that he makes it to where quarterbacks don't really have to do that much reading. It's just about recognizing their plays and what routes work against, certain corners or whatnot. But he's definitely gotten better, not only physically, but mentally. And I think that's what's scary considering how young he is and how much he's already done in his career.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you just said. I kind of want to talk about where the Bills should go from here. Obviously, Kuiper has them selecting a running back. I don't know if that's the number one need. I think if you're the Bills, you kind of just got to, make sure that offensive line stays intact. And I don't know what their receiving situation is, but maybe get another weapon if they can upgrade from John Brown, Cole Beasley. I think they have one more receiver that's pretty good. I don't remember his name at this point, but I just think you need to continue to do all you can to surround Josh Allen with as much talent as possible. It's a very deep receiver class, so I think that's something they could address in the draft. So they don't have to spend big money in free agency. I think re-signing a right tackle should be your priority, and whatever you can do defensively to upgrade, maybe add another corner, whatever their team needs are. I think that it'll be very easy for a team that has so many young players, uh, and especially when they're not paying Allen anything yet. Um, I they could I mean on they could wait like 2 more years to sign him to a big extension. I would imagine they're going to try to get that done sooner rather than later. It's going to be very easy for them. Same with the Chiefs to continue to upgrade, continue to put together a roster that will be able to compete with the Chiefs. So
Yeah, I think the Bills, they're only going to get better. I think they're going to learn a lot from, this season and the postseason. And, sometimes forget this is a team that could have easily had a 12-0 streak before entering the playoffs. Other than that DeAndre Hopkins catch, they were, darn near perfect for a long period of time. They were arguably the hottest team in the NFL. And I think the fact that they have, really simple adjustments to make, like, getting better at the run game and maybe even bringing pressure faster, at opposing quarterbacks. I really think if they can just take care of those two things, this is the team that's really going to be rivaling with the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC. This is going to be that one team that's going to be the challenger. And, maybe one of these days we'll see in the Super Bowl.
yeah, I mean, it definitely has a Brady Montana, no, not Brady Montana, Brady Manning feel to it. Colts Patriots. That's what the rivalry was for the longest time when Brady was in the AFC and Peyton was still playing. Um, I think that kind of wraps up the discussion for the AFC Championship. Unless you have anything else you want to add.
No, that's about it. I'm ready to talk about the NFC.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on now to the NFC Championship game. The Buccaneers beat the Packers 31-26, something I predicted 2 weeks ago, but completely backed off of last week just because I thought the Packers looked so good against the Rams. And clearly, there's a lot to unpack in this game. I think the main thing that we should discuss is whether or not Coach LaFleur for the Green Bay Packers, the head coach, messed up not going for it late in the fourth quarter when it was, I believe it was like 4th and 3, or maybe it was a 4th and goal. I'm not sure. Um, Instead, they kick the field goal late and they don't get the ball back because of a pass interference call. That I mean, okay. So We'll talk about Lafleur kicking the field goal, and then we'll talk about all the non calls and then the call. I'm curious to hear after kind of sitting in the moment. I know that we were both very frustrated and upset with it. I am curious to see if after some time to reflect on that, if your opinions changed or not. So what do you think about LaFleur's decision to kick the field goal instead of going for it with Aaron Rodgers?
I do think that they should have went for it, in my opinion. I mean, as much as they did have a good chance of getting one more stop, after that drive, um, Tom Brady, in moments that matter, almost go Tom Brady's way, no matter what. And we've seen it again and again. And very recently, this past weekend, that sometimes Tom Brady will even get the edge off a technicality. So I really think they should have went for it on 4th down with Aaron Rodgers. I really think they should have put the pressure on Tom Brady rather than just have it to where he only needed to get 10 yards rather than get, the 60 or 70 yards they would need to go downfield and score again. So I really think they should have went for it, especially when you have Aaron Rodgers, especially when you have Devontae Adams, especially when you had, Williams, who's actually playing well after Aaron Jones got hurt. So I think they had ways to score on that 4th down, and they even had a way to score on that 3rd down, have Aaron Rodgers just look right rather than kept throwing across his body. So there was a lot of small things that could have easily changed the outcome of this game. It's definitely not a surprise to those who have been cheering against them in the AFC that games like this come down to the wire with Tom Brady. But yeah, in my opinion, overall, I think Green Bay should have went for it on 4th down and just really put it on Bruce Arians' heels to call the right plays on the final drive rather than say, well, we got Tom Brady and we'll just let him call the go-to play to get 10 yards.
I do agree. In the moment, for a second, when I was watching it, I understood kicking the field goal, but now looking back on it, let's say that they don't get the touchdown or the 1st down, whichever it was in that situation, and you would be down 31-23, right? You're down 8. It's still a one-score game, and you just don't convert, right? Then you are pinning Tom Brady and that Buccaneers offense inside the 10-yard line with a pretty good chance to play the field position game, right? For those who don't know, when I say the field position game, I just mean if the Packers were to stop the Buccaneers, which is more than likely going to happen, because if you're pinned inside the 10-yard line right there, I don't envision with a non-mobile quarterback the Buccaneers really throwing the football. I think they would have run 3 straight plays and then punted the football away. Maybe run 2 and then had Brady throw it on, 3rd down, whatever it was, right? I think you have a better chance at stopping them inside the 10 than you do inside the 30 or whatever, right? Then you can force a punt. If the bad pass interference call that we talked about, that I mentioned previously, doesn't get called, you punt, and then Green Bay has the ball on the 50 if it's, goes their way. So I think that in that situation, you really should just play the field position battle, go forward on 4th down, and then, go for 2. Look, you kick the field goal, you're down a score anyways. So what's the difference? Now let's talk about the non-call. Okay. So people, and myself included, we weren't upset that Um, we weren't upset at the call because it was the correct call.
But the timing.
It's the fact that you let them play the entire game with multiple holding calls that are just ignored. Hell, Aaron Rodgers' only interception of the game came on a pass interference call. It's clearly blatant pass interference or defensive holding or whichever one you want to call it. To me, it's almost the same freaking thing. Like, if I just don't, I don't like the timing of it. And maybe, and this really is going to get to the conspiracy theorist out there. Oh, it's rigged for Tom Brady,
Well, it
I
doesn't help
don't,
that the refs spent 20 seconds discussing before they even threw that flag.
yeah. And I don't, look, I disagree with the call. Um, Look, the Packers were down anyways by 5 at that point. They were down by what the final score ended up being, 31-26. There's no guarantee that if they don't get that and the Bucks punt it away, there's no guarantee that the Packers score and win the game, right?
True.
Um, and in my opinion, look, I've coached football in the past and I've been on the opposite end of some crappy calls. I know we all have, right? I always tell the team, and this is a philosophy I do live by, at least in football. If you didn't play well enough to win without the bad call, then you didn't play well enough, period. If that one call decides the game, that's more an indictment on the team.
Right.
And I kind of wanted to, this is where I'm going to segue into Aaron Rodgers throwing, or, only throwing three touchdowns, right? I know he had a good stat line. I just feel like he could have done more for this reason. If Tom Brady, if you were to tell me that the Buccaneers would have won and Brady would have thrown 3 interceptions, I would have been like, you're crazy. If Aaron Rodgers has a chance to capitalize off of 3 turnovers, then there's no way in hell the Packers are going to lose this game. And they didn't capitalize. They kicked field goals. They just didn't score. And Brady, I mean, the first half, Brady played great. The second half, he was not good at all. No touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And, people want to act like, oh, Brady did this for the Bucks. He definitely helped. And he's definitely, like, there are things that you can't really measure on the field, like leadership, the intangibles and whatnot. But Brady's not the only reason they won this game. I mean, the Buccaneers defense played great. To hold the Packers to 26 points when your quarterback is basically handing Aaron Rodgers free points, so just a lot to unpack from what I said, but I want to know your thoughts.
It was a good game. I will say that. I definitely undermined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Seeing them being that 5th seed, entering the playoffs, just pulling off their win against the Washington football team near the second half. I was like, I could see them being a good team, but I didn't see them being a great team. But all these guys who we know are veterans, who all were in the Pro Bowls, sometime between 2011 and 2015, they really stepped up for Tom Brady and they really stepped up for each other. This is a team that says we're not done. We're here to win still. We think we have the best quarterback now. We think Bruce Arians is a veteran coach who can call the right plays. And if not, we have Tom Brady who can, because he's been in the league just as long as he has, if not longer. We have Chris Godwin, we have Mike Evans, both guys who have been to the Pro Bowl at least once, I believe. I know Mike Evans has. I don't know if Chris Godwin has or not, but I know both these guys are pretty much playing as top receivers in the NFL. So to have both those guys there for Tom Brady. On top of that, you have Rob Gronkowski, who's been Tom Brady's go-to since 2011, 2012, I don't know, something like that. He's been his go-to tight end for so many years, and he's not even the best tight end on their team. So this was a team that was really talented. We thought Father Time was not only going to get Tom Brady this year, but also some of his teammates, as we said, were, they were a bigger deal in the 2012 to 2015 range. But all these guys really stepped up this year, and I have to give props where props is due. All these guys can play. Pierre Paul, he can play. Tom Brady, he can play. Rob Gronkowski, he can play. All these guys that were, tinkering with retirement, came back from retirement, should be retiring. They can still play. On the Green Bay side of things, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a lot of help. He's done so much with just Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones, which people don't realize in the NFL, as great as it is to have one good wide receiver and a good running back, it's almost not enough anymore in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes, we talk about how great he is as a quarterback, but he has Travis Kelce, who you can arguably say is the best tight end in the league. He has Tyreek Hill, who you can arguably say is a top 5 wide receiver now in the NFL. He's got that going on. Josh Allen has Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley, one of the best number 2 wide receivers in the NFL. Like, he's a solid, check down receiver, solid, finding the holes in his own coverage type of receiver. So he really complements Stephon Diggs and makes life easier for Josh Allen. Then you got Russell Wilson, who has Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. If one doesn't do good, guess what? He can throw 200 yards to the other guy. So it's kind of a luxury to actually have multiple weapons. And really, it's for, if you're a fan of the Green Bay Packers, you must be frustrated because Aaron Rodgers could easily be one of those quarterbacks that has the same amount of weapons. He easily could have been, because Green Bay had a solid, first round pick last year that they used on a quarterback out of Utah State. No disrespect to Jordan Love at all, but he's not going to help Green Bay win games now. And Green Bay, they're a team that's made it to back-to-back NFC Championship games. They're ready to win now. They're not waiting on another Aaron Rodgers 2.0 to be, to help them win in 2030. They're ready to win now in 2021 and 2022. So I think for them, it's a little frustrating to know that they're, as knowing that they have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, they don't have one of the best offensive units in the NFL. And that's, I think, what's hurting them. I think defensively they got a little bit better. I think there's only so much you can do against a really talented Tom Brady-led offense that has a lot of these, star players, as we said, for Tampa Bay. But I think Green Bay, knowing that they were this close to coming back and winning against the Buccaneers, knowing that they could have gotten their first NFC Championship game in Lambeau Field for Aaron Rodgers, I think we're going to see them be a lot more aggressive this offseason to get him the right players.
Yeah, they should be aggressive. I mean, I feel like that's a very common theme. Like I said when we were talking about the AFC Championship, the more aggressive coach won. I don't think that Brady's the more aggressive quarterback, but the more aggressive coach won. I mean, and sometimes aggression isn't what you need. Running cover one man with 8 seconds left, knowing Brady's going to throw it deep, isn't exactly what you want to be doing as far as aggression's
Definitely not ideal. No,
yeah,
not when Rob Gronkowski and Mike Evans are lined up somewhere at the same time.
That play when with 8 seconds left in the half, where Brady threw it to Scotty Miller for a touchdown, just that too is just it's such a backbreaking play. I mean, especially like if you literally just sit and cover 2 man, all problems are avoided right there. And then they have to call a quick timeout and kick a field goal, and then maybe the whole course of the game has changed. But the Packers defensive coordinator, Mike Pettin, definitely not a great game for him, and not a great game for the cornerback, Kevin King, I believe his name is. He just constantly getting. I don't expect him to be on their roster next year, and if he is, I don't expect him to be playing. So, man, and it was all in all, Rodgers did all he could, and it's got to be frustrating when your defensive coordinator screws up, your head coach kicks a field goal, and you don't get to go for it on 4th down. It just and you don't have a number 2 receiver. When we were watching the game, I pointed out something. I don't know if you caught me. I said one of these other number 2 receivers is going to screw up. They always do. There's always a key drop, and sure enough, on a 2-point conversion that Green Bay went for, that could have changed the whole course of the game. It dropped, right? And that is the problem with the Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the Alan Lazards of the world. They always seem to mess up in a big moment, and they always have a key drop here and there. And I really, really hope that the Packers make a run in free agency at a receiver, or they go up and draft one in the first round of the draft. And it doesn't even have to be in the first round of the draft. It can be in the second or third round. This is such a deep receiver class where you can get a really good receiver in the later rounds. It's just frustrating to see. As a fan of Aaron Rodgers, I'm a fan of Aaron Rodgers, and I'm getting so tired of Brady just constantly winning. Right? It's going to be interesting to see Brady versus Mahomes, which I guess is what we could transition to right now if you want.
Yeah, let's go ahead and have a little bit of insight on this Super Bowl matchup. I mean, it's easy to say, and it's going to sound cliche, but these are the two best football teams in the NFL. These are the two even hottest teams in the NFL. We sometimes undermined Kansas City because of how crazily Buffalo Bills were winning their last 11 games before until they lost to Kansas City. But Kansas City is really just darn near impossible on offense. And then on the other side, you have Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, and then a bunch of other wide receivers that are actually like key weapons in this game. Mike Evans again, Chris Godwin again, Zach Miller, as you just brought up, or not? Is it Zach Miller or
Scotty Miller?
Scotty Miller. I keep thinking Zach for some reason. And and Scotty Miller, he really plays kind of like Cole Beasley, but just a lot faster. Like he can really do,
Yeah, he's definitely a threat.
Yeah, like he's a scary threat. Like if Cole Beasley could just run, a half second 40 faster, that's Scotty Miller basically. So the fact that Tom Brady even has that in his pocket, it's interesting to see which of these offenses is going to be stopped more, if gets stopped at all, or who's going to just have the ball last in the fourth quarter. Because I really think this is going to be one of those games that could easily be 45-38 or 42-35, something like that. Like this is going to be an entertaining football game. And I think for those who are involved in doing squares, almost any square at this point has a chance of winning you money.
Yeah, and I don't know if you mentioned it, but this is the first home Super Bowl for a team.
That is true.
Tom Brady,
First ever.
yeah, Tom Brady going to be playing in Tampa, Florida, and I really think this is a matchup between a guy who is considered the greatest of all time by pretty much everybody. If he's not your GOAT, then I really don't know what to tell you.
And if he wins, he will be.
Yeah, if he is, I really just don't see how you can make an argument Brady isn't the GOAT. People try to because that's what this industry is all about, making clicks and clickbait and whatnot. Versus a guy who could, I mean, if he keeps this up, he may overtake Brady someday as the GOAT. You never know. It's possible.
Mahomes can. He definitely has a chance. He's doing a lot already. He's
He's
already
already
had a lot of success at a young
yeah.
age. Can he do it up to out his entire contract, which is I believe another 10 years? I don't know. I can't say. Only Father
Yeah.
Time will tell. But the fact that Tom Brady has been dominating this long, he's been playing this well, and knowing that he was the one that came out on top, went after being separated from the Patriots, knowing that, hey, guess what? My first year leaving the Patriots, I was no longer just part of a team that barely made the wild card anymore. We went to the NFC and dominated the NFC like it was nothing. We got through there, other than the Green Bay Packers, they basically got through there knowing that they were the better team. So just ridiculous. And to put things into perspective, he's now won just as many NFC Championship games as Aaron Rodgers, as Drew Brees. And he's now,
No,
and he's
more
and
Mahomes. Mahomes already has been to one more conference championships than I think Breeze and Rodgers, right? Two. He's
yeah,
won two. They both only been in one Super Bowl, right?
yeah. Patrick Mahomes is already the youngest
So,
player to go into 3 consecutive conference championship games.
yeah.
So these are already 2 historically successful quarterbacks. Just one has been successful already for the last 20 years, and the other one has just been successful since he entered the NFL. And it's going to be interesting to see which one really comes out better. We'll probably go more into depth about our predictions next week, but again, there's just so many things to watch for in this game. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just a lot. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do think that the Chiefs are probably and should be the early favorites here. I know that they did lose their starting left tackle, Eric Fisher, for the rest of the season, which really hurts them, especially against this Buccaneers pass rush featuring Shaquille Barrett. There's a reason they franchise tagged him. They want to make sure he could have the same success as he did last season, and shocker, he has. Uh, I think that franchise for him was like $19 million, so he definitely got paid.
Yeah,
Um, and the Chiefs' offensive line just full of seventh round picks and undrafted players, and I don't know if it's more of a testament to the coaching staff and being able to develop these, or the scouting department being able to find this offensive line and these hidden gems in the late rounds and after the draft. Um, the thing is, Eric Fisher was a first round pick, and losing him and now having to start a whole entire offensive line full of seventh rounders and undrafted players, I think that, I mean, heck, it may be a perfect storm, man. This Buccaneers team has a really good pass rush, and they have a really good defensive-minded head coach, or not head coach, defensive head coach, or not even defensive coordinator. Excuse me. They have a good defensive coordinator in Todd Bowles who loves to blitz. So there could be problems for the Chiefs, man. Brady could pull this off.
yeah. There's a lot of things that could happen in the Super Bowl, and I'm definitely looking forward to having my popcorn ready and watching everything unfold from the national anthem all the way to the post game speech and the confetti, because it's definitely going to be a show. And either way, we're going to see history being made again in some way, shape, or form. And we already know that history has been made by making this again the first time an NFL team will host the Super Bowl. So, I mean, there's just a lot that's gonna unfold in the history books, especially in the history of the NFL with the Super Bowl coming up in February 7th.
All right, and we'll leave it at that because I'm sure the Super Bowl is the only thing that we're going to have to discuss over the next 2 weeks. So we're going to save more of the discussion for then. Um, what I'd like to do now is move on to Matthew Stafford, a quarterback that I have been praying would get traded from the franchise that is the Detroit Lions. And I'm very, very happy to report that the Lions and Matthew Stafford have agreed to mutually part ways via a trade. So there's about 10 teams I have written down that I think could potentially trade for him. Some of them I think are a little far fetched and probably won't happen. Um, but you never know. A person, you can dream, right? Um, so I'll go down the list and we'll talk about each team and why they could trade for Stafford and potential packages um, that they could end up trading for Stafford. First off, there are some things I want to say. I believe Matthew Stafford is worth at least 2 first-round picks. He's a franchise quarterback. He is only 32 years old. Um, some reports are saying that he won't even go for that. He'll only go for a second-round pick. Sam Bradford was traded for a first-round pick. Josh Rosen was traded for a second-round pick. Look, and Ryan Tannehill, of all quarterbacks, was traded for a fourth-round pick. Matthew Stafford is a better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill. He's better than Sam Bradford. He's better than Josh Rosen. He will go for at least 2 first-round picks, or at least 1 first-round pick and a player, or a first, a player, and a second. There's a lot of different trade combinations you could go for, but the point is he will go for at least 1 first-round picks. If I was a GM, I'd be willing to give up 2. So, um,
Yeah, I think he's worth at least a first round pick myself. And going down this list, I really think that he could really be a game changer for any of these teams that do acquire him, because he is a good quarterback. He's still, in my opinion, one of the better veteran quarterbacks in the National Football League. He can really, and he's also a solid leader. So he's gonna really just make the whole offensive unit better, no matter what system he's in.
All right, so I'm going to start out with the betting favorite, which is my favorite team, the Denver Broncos. I would absolutely, I would love for this to happen. I have been a big Stafford to Denver guy because I'm not a big Drew Lock guy. Um, and it is the betting favorite currently, as of Vegas odds, I believe. So, obviously Vegas thinks there's a good chance it happens. Obviously, no one knows for sure, but I think I'd be willing to trade the number 9 overall pick in the draft and Drew Lock for him. I'd even be willing to give him next year's first rounds or second round pick. Um, Look, if Matthew Stafford gets traded here, Drew Lock is not going to be on the roster, so he's going to end up on another team. And if the Lions don't want to take they would have the 7th pick. Um, they have the 7th pick in this draft, and if they could end up with the 9th pick unless Denver's giving them next year's and a player and a second round pick. Um, they don't even have to take it. Honestly, if you give them Drew Lock and they think Drew Lock can develop, you don't even have to take a first round quarterback with your 7th and 9th pick, and you could still build up this franchise, right? I don't know where you stand on Drew Lock as of this point, but if you're the Broncos, I'd be willing to trade the number 9 pick. And I think he's a good fit here because of all the weapons that Denver has. They just drafted Jerry Jeudy. They have Cortland Sutton coming off injury. And another thing I want to add about Stafford is that he's not that expensive, right? He's only making like $21 million, which isn't actually a lot for the going rate of quarterback because he signed his extension so long ago. He's only 32 years old. A lot of Broncos fans would rather see Drew Lock develop. I wouldn't. I think your time is to win now if you're a team. You have a good defense with your coach, Vic Fangio. And you have all these weapons in Denver, all these good receivers that Drew Lock has not been able to utilize. This would easily be the best receiving core that Matthew Stafford has had. I know he's had Kenny Galladay. I know he's had Megatron, but after that, that's all he's had, right? So what do you think about Stafford heading to the Broncos?
I definitely see it as the best fit. He definitely fits Denver's offense as being a veteran quarterback. That's something that um, John Elway, he likes to have in the quarterback room. He likes having that one veteran who's already been in the league, who already knows some of the X's and O's. And I really think Matthew Stafford, he best fits the kind of guy that John Elway wants. I think Denver's offense would just easily work out with him just fine. They have a lot of great talent on the outside, at tight end, at running back. They have a lot of guys that can easily make this offense click by simply upgrading at the quarterback position. And I think from Drew Lock to Matthew Stafford, that's a big enough jump to where all of a sudden this is a team that could sneak into the playoffs, that being that 7th or 6th seed, and then finding ways to even play, challenge the Dolphins, the Colts, the Titans in the world. This is a team that could easily get better with Matthew Stafford, and I kind of actually, like you, kind of hope that he does go there because I think not only would it make Denver better, I think it'd make Matthew Stafford better because he would actually have consistent weapons, every week.
A lot of people seem to disrespect Matthew Stafford, and they don't have him in that conversation of being a top 10 quarterback and whatnot. I think he easily is a top 10 quarterback. I think that if he goes to another team and he has the opportunity to show it, you'll definitely see it. Other teams. So I think so. After that, I don't think even with Stafford, Denver would be a Super Bowl contender. I think they'd be a playoff contender. And look, once you get into playoffs, right, anything can really happen. So here are some teams that I think would instantly be Super Bowl contenders if they were to acquire Stafford. Uh, if the 49ers were to acquire Stafford, I think they'd have to give up the 12th pick and Jimmy Garoppolo, probably more there. And I think that he is a significant upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that he would fit great in Kyle Shanahan's system. And if Kyle Shanahan was able to get a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, just look out. I would put a lot of money on the 49ers to return to the Super Bowl and win it.
Yeah, that's another team that would really benefit from Matthew Stafford, and I can't disagree with you on the fact that they could be easily a Super Bowl contender. The one of the things, when we watched last year's Super Bowl between the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs, I saw Kansas City simply having the edge because I knew Garoppolo was going to throw his interceptions. Garoppolo always throws picks in nearly every game. If you have Matthew Stafford, and you have him working with George Kittle, you have, a growing receiving core within the Niners organization. If you have an established run game under Shanahan's system, Matthew Stafford, he will definitely not be making those same mistakes, and he will be making his reads. He'll be progressing. He has a better arm, in my opinion. He's a little bit more accurate with the ball, in my opinion. This is a guy who's definitely better than Jimmy Garoppolo. So under Shanahan's system, he would definitely get better, as well as the 49ers would get better, assuming the 49ers, all their players, like I heard this past year, all come back healthy and no longer drink that Santa Clara water.
Yeah, there's something in the water there at Santa Clara. Um, Another team that I think would be an instant Super Bowl contender are the Indianapolis Colts if they were to trade for a actual franchise quarterback. Look, and no disrespect to Rivers, he's obviously retired now, Hall of Fame quarterback. Um, he's just not the guy that's going to lead these guys to the promised land. And I think Stafford's a better quarterback. Um, I think you'd have to give up the 21st pick in the draft and probably a second round pick, along with probably Sam Darnold if you're going to go that route. Or not Sam Darnold. No, that's the Jets. I don't think the Jets would trade for him, actually. Excuse me. You'd probably have to give up maybe Jacoby Brissett, who is on the Colts right now, unless he's a free agent, which I don't know particularly. I think you're gonna have to give up a player. What is what I'm saying, basically, right? Um, I I really hope if he does not go to my Denver Broncos, I hope the Colts are the team to pick him up because they have so much talent, a great coach. It seems like they just need to get a quarterback, and with this, they'd finally have one.
Yeah, the Colts are interesting because they were actually a team that did play pretty well this season and actually contended well against the Buffalo Bills in the wild card round. Seeing Philip Rivers retire was kind of crazy, but pretty much well expected because of how old he was and how long he's already been in the league. Um, Matthew Stafford's definitely been playing better at the quarterback position than Philip Rivers has in recent years. He is a guy that can make them better, but I expect the Colts to kind of go younger with their next quarterback. I think they're going to really try and get Carson Wentz out of Philly if they can find ways to trade for Philly to get him, because I really think Carson Wentz would really fit well in Frank Reich's system. But I don't know. We'll see. I think even if they don't go after Carson Wentz, I think they're going to try and get someone under 30.
Another team I have written down, the New England Patriots. I believe you'd probably have to end up trading the 15th overall pick that they do have, along with more. I think the only issue with him going to the Patriots is that he'd kind of be in just a similar situation that he was in with Detroit, right? He would have no weapons. He would be surrounded. I mean, he'd have a great offensive line, as the New England always does, but I mean, we saw what Cam Newton had to deal with this year. And don't get me wrong, Stafford's a far better quarterback than Cam Newton at this point in their career, but I just don't think that this one is that possible. Plus, I just don't see Belichick trading for Matthew Stafford. I feel like he doesn't fit the Patriot way for one, and I think that Belichick's kind of stubborn in the fact that I think he wants to draft and develop his own guy and say, look, I could do it without Tom Brady, right? So the Patriots are an option that a lot of people are talking about. I just don't think it happens. So, what do you think?
I kind of don't see it happening either, just because Stafford would have, again, no weapons to work with in New England. And though I think the offensive line would be better and the running backs that he would have in the backfield be a little bit better, I don't really see him getting a lot of passes off, even in the play action system. And also, I do agree that Bill Belichick, he's going to want a quarterback that's somewhere in the cheaper route. He'd rather put the time and effort into progressing a quarterback than forcing Kraft to spend millions and millions of dollars on a quarterback, and rather have that money spent on either weapons, on defensive personnel. He'd rather have all the little details taken care of before he gets a flashy quarterback. So I don't really see New England kind of taking the charge in this one. I don't see Bill Belichick wanting to go a veteran quarterback route anymore.
All right. Another team that I would think would want to trade for him, and a team that I think should trade for him. This is probably one of my favorite fits outside of my Denver Broncos. If the Washington football team decided to trade for him, great defense, really good coach Ron Rivera. Obviously, they have Alex Smith and Taylor Heineke, and I think you'd probably have to trade one of them away, or maybe they're free agents. I don't know the situation. And look, I like Taylor Heineke as much as the next guy, but he's only had one game where he was good, and I don't think you can bet on that. Plus, I think if you trade Stafford to Washington for like the 19th pick is what the Washington football team has, they are an instant contender in the NFC. It's becoming less and less clear who the best team in the NFC is. Look, next year Brady's going to be a year older. We don't know if the Packers are going to be, spend money on a receiver or, give Aaron Rodgers what he needs. Russell Wilson's playing in Seattle with, who God knows who has a coordinator and stubborn Pete Carroll. There is no guaranteed for any of the NFC teams to be back where they are. I think Washington, if they were able to get Stafford, it could turn them into a 10-win team. And, once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen.
Yeah, they would definitely be more of an outright division champion had they got the quarterback position situated. But I don't know if they'll have enough to offer to Detroit for Matthew Stafford. I really think because they are significantly low in the draft, in that first round draft, that unless they give, their first round pick and the following first round pick, or if they do first, second, and third the same year, I don't see them going that aggressive to get Matthew Stafford. I think Ron Rivera would rather take a step back, try and find, a diamond in the rough in the draft itself within the quarterback position, or maybe just trade up a few spots up to get another young quarterback. I don't see Washington being this aggressive because they don't have enough capital. I think they would lose too much out of trying to get Matthew Stafford. And as much as I do think Matthew Stafford would make their team better day one, I don't think they would be good enough to compete with the rest of the NFC in the playoffs again. I still think that they don't have enough weapons all around. I think their defensive line's great, especially with Chase Young out there on defense, but I just don't see their secondary being good enough. They have too many holes, and it's not going to be fixed by just one quarterback.
The another team that I think should do all they can to get Stafford, but I really doubt this happens because they're a division rival, the Chicago Bears. They have been in quarterback hell for who knows how long. And if you can instantly get a veteran franchise quarterback, which is something that we've discussed, I think the two of us really believe that the Bears are just a quarterback away. They have the best defense in the NFL, arguably, right? With the Rams, the Patriots. They're always up there in terms of defense because they have Khalil Mack and the scheme that they run. I think that if this is possible, which I don't know if it is because they're a division rival, I just Stafford to the Bears is a dream scenario, I think.
It would be interesting to see Stafford play for a division rival, but I don't think Detroit would even let that trade happen.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it would happen because
Like unless Chicago gave up, so much, which I mean they have some collateral. But
they
let me
have to
just
probably give the 20th pick, which they own, next year's first round pick, a second round pick this year, and probably like what, Nick Foles, because I think he's on roster, right? Um, or another player. I don't know. Look, if the Bears were somehow able to pull this off, I think the Bears would be a Super Bowl contender. I think they'd be right up there in the division with Green Bay because this defense is so elite and they've had so much trouble at the quarterback position. And I think it really puts into perspective how bad Trubisky is, right? So
yeah.
it's a dream scenario. It probably won't happen. So yeah, but also there's two other teams that I think could trade for him, but probably won't happen. The Carolina Panthers. Obviously Teddy Bridgewater is probably not the answer there. He didn't have that great of a year. He's more of like a bridge quarterback, like a Tyrod Taylor, like an Alex Smith. And the LA Rams, if they were somehow able to package Jared Goff and a second round pick for him, which probably won't happen because they don't have any first round picks, right? Two teams that I think could, be able to upgrade at quarterback, but I just don't think I don't picture it happening because of the draft capital they have and just the position they're in, and you know, so
Yeah, those other franchises, they mainly have, younger GMs, younger head coaches. They want a generally younger team. They want a team that they can carry with throughout their careers. And they know, as relatively young Matthew Stafford is, being 32 and not 36, 38, 40 and whatnot. They definitely want someone with longer term and not worth as much draft capital or money in their salary cap. So,
Well,
yeah,
that's what I'm saying for the Rams. Like they've traded all their first round picks away for Jalen Ramsey, right? They need all the draft capital they can get. So I mean, although it would be kind of cool to see Stafford play for the Rams because I think he's an upgrade over Jared Goff. And I mean, Sean McVay came out and I believe he said there's no guarantee that Goff is the quarterback, right? So it's possible, just not plausible.
yeah,
Um,
nothing yet.
okay, so I don't know what time we're at here, but or what time we started, but to wrap up the podcast here, I just wanted to take a moment to reflect on the all-time great Kobe Bryant. He passed 1 year today, 1 year and a day by the time the audience is hearing this. Um, I mean, what can you say about him? One of the 10 best players in the NBA history. He's an inspiration to every single athlete out there, with his Mamba mentality, get it every single day, work hard, all that's, I just want to quickly say rest in peace to Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi and all the others who were lost in that tragic helicopter accident 1 year ago.
Yeah, it's crazy to believe that this was already a year. In my opinion, it still feels like it was yesterday that he passed away. He had such a phenomenal impact, not only in the sport of basketball, but just in the way humanity went on with their life. Like every person has went on with their lives. I mean, the way he betrayed himself, the way he dedicated himself to being the best player and person he can be, to pass on everything he learned and mastered to others, to pass on the way people need to, or people should, think life, the way they should attack life, be aggressive about it. If there's something they want and they know it takes time, put that time in, put that effort in, be the hardest working person in the room, be the person that gets there early, be the person that doesn't leave till late. He really set the standard on what it takes to be a person to chase your dreams, to follow your passions. And Ryan, we're both doing our best to be, some of the best in sports media, and we're still learning little by little. We're fairly young, but I think that's one of the things that's been passed on to us just from watching, you know, Kobe Bryant throughout his career, is that if we do want to, pursue our dreams into being involved in sports media, we got to go after them. And that's kind of one of the reasons why we started the Stampede. That's why we even had it back when we were doing radio stuff in high school. It's one of the reasons why I went on to go to, college and try and study, communication courses to try and get more involved. I was fortunate to, have my sports director job with KCSB 91.9 FM simply because I love sports. And that was just the one thing I wanted to be involved with the most. And that was the thing I spent 3-4 days a week just, studying games, covering games, broadcasting games, studying players, studying teams. And you've done a lot of the same stuff, Ryan. And that's why we're at where we're here today. And uh, again, just still mind blown by the passing of Kobe Bryant, knowing that it's already been a year. I don't know if you remember how your day went when it happened, but I thoroughly remember, my girlfriend calling me that morning and saying, "Hey, I just saw the report that Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash," and I did not believe her at first. I really thought that, it was a joke that maybe like TMZ or a smaller media outlet tried to come up with just to get some, clickbait or something like that. And then over time, within that next hour or two, ABC got involved, Fox got involved, NBC, CBS, ESPN, Sports Center. All these headlines finally started connecting to all these media outlets, and that's when it kind of finally hit me that he had passed away. And I just sat there in my chair in my apartment for just hours, just staring at all these screens reporting what was happening, and I just didn't have the energy to leave my room, let alone my apartment, to go do stuff. I didn't have the energy to do homework or anything like that because he really made the world stand still that day.
Yeah, I remember my it was I think I was still asleep when it happened, right? I slept in till like 11 noon or something like that day, and I remember my parents coming and like waking me up. That was back when I still lived at home, right? And they were like, "Hey, you need to wake up and come look at this." And I was like, "Oh, what happened? Probably nothing, right? Probably, they probably just waking me up because it's already like 11, right?" I go in the living room and I'm looking at the TV and I'm seeing what's going on, and I was like, "Man, there's no way, right?" Because Kobe seemed immortal, right? And we watched this kid come into the league, and we watched 20 years of excellence right before our eyes, and we watched him. It was like losing a family member because we saw Kobe grow up right in front of our eyes, from our eyes, being an 18-year-old kid to being a 38-year-old veteran, right? And finally retiring. And then we see him after life after basketball, winning an Emmy or an Oscar. What
He was an Oscar. I
he
know I
won.
get those awards mixed up too, but
Yeah,
the fact that he was doing so much after retiring, entering his 40s, it seemed like he had so much more to accomplish for himself. He's even after having arguably one of the best careers in basketball history, he still looked like a young person who was striving to achieve some greatness. He was still looking for ways to achieve greatness. And I think that's one of the reasons why his passing was such a surprise, because we really thought basketball at this point was just the tip of the iceberg in regards to his life, and the fact that he had, his daughters, even now they're still really young. And it's really sad to see, all them kids try and, grow up, try and spend the rest of their childhood without having their father with them. And, must be hard on his wife as well to be raising all these kids now on her own. And granted, they do have a really great support system. The Pau Gasol, he's been really involved with them as well. A lot of other friends and family within the city of Los Angeles and all over the world, they're definitely involved with them. But it's still, they're always going to feel empty to some extent inside, because there's no way anyone can replace Kobe Bryant. And even as us, as fans and as people who just watched him play basketball, and people all over the world, we feel empty to some extent inside, because a man like him is not alive anymore.
yeah. You mentioned Powell being involved. A lot of other athletes and members of the NBA basketball community involved as well. Shaq obviously, being his first teammate that they won championships together and whatnot. And I know LeBron is really close with their family, Dwayne Wade as well. And it's just it's tough, man. It sucks. And the crazy thing to me is we saw 20 years of excellence, and then I really think that we actually missed out on, after seeing him go through his career. I think we missed out on the best of Kobe Bryant, really. I think the life that he had outside of basketball, after retirement, coaching his daughter's, team, and winning an Oscar or Emmy, whichever it was, all this stuff he was doing outside of basketball. I think we missed the best of years of Kobe Bryant. I think he was only getting better with age. Um, it sucks. It really does. And I know that we both, I mean, heck, we're both Laker fans, and we both looked up to him. And you know, I hate to end the show on a kind of sad note, but I did just want to kind of sit here and reflect on Kobe. So
Yep. Rest in peace to one of the greatest of all time, not only as a basketball player, but as a human being. And yeah, I really am excited to see how other people have been impacted by him, and how their success was generated via the Mamba mentality.
yeah, hey, I just want to point out, uh, LeBron dropped 46, man, a day
Oof.
a day
Against
before,
Cleveland,
against his former team, a day
year 18.
before. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Kobe was with LeBron that day, right?
Had to
All
be.
right. Well, I think after that, we're gonna call it here on the Stampede podcast. Once again, thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Please do whatever you can to support the show. We'd all really appreciate it here at the Stampede. Unless you got anything else to add, Ashton, I'm gonna call it.
No, that's about it. I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl 2 weeks from now. Very interested to see how the Madden Pro Bowl is going to work out. I think it's this weekend as well. And yeah, for all those that are listening, please keep subscribing, following, liking, all those things that help make us kind of get ourselves more out there.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Stampede Podcast. My name is Ryan Jones, along with my good friend Ashton Yanez. We're going to call it here, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see you next time.